March Madness is finally here. We're just hours away from finding out which 68 college basketball teams will be selected to play in the 2016 NCAA tournament. That's what we do know, but there's plenty that remains up in the air. Here now is Seth Davis, a college basketball analyst for CBS Sports. And Seth, you're going to be part of the newly expanded NCAA basketball championship selection show tonight on CBS. It's not just an hour anymore. You got two. So what are we going to be talking about?
The same bracket, actually, just expanded over 2 hours. And our friends on the Turner side, Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley. So they will be in the studio making all of our picks. And I hope that everybody immediately forgets what I did and whatever I say. And I always tell people, people say, well, what's the key to winning the bracket pool? And the answer is do not, under any circumstances, use my picks, because I like to take chances and go with underdogs, whereas I guess in the bracket pool, people like to play it safe.
Well,
so
but
that's my disclaimer.
It makes it more fun,
sure.
I think. Especially,
someone to blame, right?
Yeah, well, maybe you play one kind of straight and the other one a little fun. You can get multiple pools.
You know, I'm a big believer that you should fill out one bracket, though. I only get to fill out one bracket, though. I know people fill out like multiple brackets. There's no integrity in the process.
Well, I have to ask you, because
okay.
we can't fill out our brackets quite yet because we
right.
don't know the teams that are going to
right.
be in it. There's always this handful of bubble teams every year. So who are you kind of looking at? Who do you think is going to get in? Who's out? Well, and who might squeak by?
Well, of course, now I'm just guessing. I don't know yet. We're not going to get the bracket until hopefully before 5:30. We're just hoping we get them by 5:30, so we're not filling the opening part of the selection show. But a couple things. First of all, there are actually 2 extra spots in the field this year because SMU and Louisville are both under postseason bans, and they would have been, highly seeded teams in the field. So there are actually 2 additional spots this year that there wouldn't otherwise have been. And then we've also had a lot of these what we call mid-major conference tournaments outside of the big Power 5 conferences, where teams that had won the regular season conference title and therefore might be considered for an at-large bid did not win the postseason tournament in that conference, where they would have gotten an automatic bid. So that means that the bubble pool of candidates has gotten bigger. So in other words, I'll give an example, like Valparaiso, great team from the Horizon League. They won the Horizon League regular season. If they had won the Horizon League tournament, they would have gotten the league's automatic bid. But because they lost, somebody else got the team's automatic bid in the tournament. And now Valparaiso is in that group of at-large teams that might otherwise go to a team like a Syracuse, like a Wichita State. So it's a really compelling mix down there at the end. And those folks in the committee here down the street, they're making some really very consequential decisions. These kids in these schools, there's money on the line. They've worked hard. They've dreamed about this. And there's only so many spots someone's going to get left out.
Well, we've seen in previous years, there could be upsets even in the picking of these teams.
Yeah, and I think the viewers have become sophisticated enough, Jamie, to understand that just because a team is a 13 seed, they have a 13 next to their name, another team they're playing has a 4 next to their name, that doesn't mean that much. There's not that much of a gap between those teams, and that's also what's an interesting dynamic to watch out for during the selection show, because you have certain teams from these power conferences. Syracuse comes to mind. South Carolina is an SEC team that comes to mind. Oregon State out in the Pac-12. These are big conference schools. But then you have Valparaiso, Monmouth, which has had a fun year, Wichita State, teams of that ilk. San Diego State just lost last night. So does the committee take the power conference teams that have a lot of really good teams built into their schedule so they can prove that they belong, or a team like Monmouth, which doesn't have a lot of really highly ranked teams in its own league, so it doesn't have those same opportunities. So that's a definite power dynamic that's going to be at play.
Oh, that's fun that they're picking those. So who gets the #1 seed in your mind?
Well, the only thing I can say for absolute sure is that Kansas is going to be the #1 overall seed in the tournament.
You think so?
Yeah,
There's some debate
that's a done.
online.
No debate at all. Done deal, I promise. If I'm only right about one thing, that may be the only thing that I'm right about today. Kansas will be the #1 overall 1 seed. North Carolina, by virtue of their ACC tournament title, I think is also going to be a 1 seed. Now, Michigan State plays later today. If they win the Big Ten tournament, I think they'll be a 1 seed. And my 4th right now is Oregon, which just won the Pac-12. But if Michigan State loses, my next in line, as my friend Clark Kellogg would say, on the team on the stoop is Oklahoma. Oklahoma and Virginia both in that mix. One way or another, we're going to know what's going on right about 5:45.
I know you have to run. 2 quick questions. Who's the Cinderella story, and who do you pick to win overall?
Well, my overall winner is Michigan State. I've been on them for the last few weeks. They went through a little bit dip because they had a key injury. That player came back, and Tom Izzo is really one of the great coaches. I mean, they have the guy who I think will be the National Player of the Year, or should be the National Player of the Year, in Denzel Valentine. And as far as Cinderellas go, there's a team from a conference called the Southland Conference, Stephen F. Austin.
Okay.
They've won 20 games in a row. This is going to be their third consecutive NCAA tournament because they've won their league 3 years in a row. So they may be a low seed playing a, quote, power conference team, but they've actually had more NCAA tournament experience than that team. So Stephen F. Austin is going to be one of my Cinderellas.
All right, well, here, I'm going to have you fill out how I should fill out my bracket.
No
Yes.
blaming.
Seth
No
Davis,
blaming.
thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you,
us.
Jamie.
And don't forget to watch Seth and Greg Gumbel and Ernie Johnson on the Selection Show special airing on CBS and live streaming available through CBSSports.com today at 5:30 p.m. Eastern.